lot of musicians, we have a hard time making friends. We're not the most social. Like I certainly am not the most social and outgoing person. I started playing music and touring at a very young age. So for me, alcohol was the great equalizer.
This is the Knockin Doorz Down podcast. If you're looking to hear stories of hope, inspiration, and turning your greatest adversities into your advantage, well, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Jason LaChance, and through my addiction recovery and struggles with anxiety and depression, I dug into my passion of speaking with people who have transformed their lives. And my guest, Hurricane Nita Strauss, that's right, guitarist for not only Alice Cooper and Demi Lovato, but of course, she's had an amazing solo career. Hurricane Nita and I talked that moment of surrender when she knew she had to make the change that she continually promised to do and broke over and over. Sounds familiar for anyone in recovery, right? We also talk about the influences of Alice Cooper, Zakk, Wylde, and others in the rock world on her sobriety. As well, we dig into how she got a Super Bowl ring from the Los Angeles Rams and why. Plus, I ask her, as a big WWE fan, what it was like performing at Wrestlemania for Shinsuke Nakamura's entrance. And we have some fun random questions. And of course, Nita leaves us with the final thoughts. Nita Strauss, thank you for joining me on Knockin Doorz Down.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very, very honored to be here.
Been a fan of your work for a long time and appreciate that you recover out loud to let people know, hey, you can turn your life around.
Thank you so much. That really means a lot.
Absolutely. Man, gosh, where do we start with this? There's so many wonderful things I'd like to talk to you about as a music fan too. But let's talk to recovery. The significant date, what was it? 9/5/15?
That is right.
And did you just have a moment of surrender, or was it a screw it? I'm done. This is just a miserable way to live.
A little bit of everything. It was a long time coming. I had struggled with my different demons in the past, and thankfully was able to get rid of most of them previous to that. But drinking on tour is a hard one because it's just so prevalent. You don't realize how dangerous it is and how much you're drinking until you really are forced to take a hard look at it. And it doesn't seem like very much at the time because it's just so ingrained in the culture that, you have maybe a shot or something to relax before you go on stage. And, you finish the show and you go and meet your friends and you have a cocktail or two with your friends. And then you get on the bus, you have a glass of wine to unwind, go to sleep for the night. And then the next day, you have the day off in Peoria, Illinois, and nobody knows anyone there. So what do? But you go to the hotel bar and drink there. And before you realize it, you're having, 10, 12 drinks a day, 7 days a week, 10 months of the year on the road. And it was just affecting me in every aspect of my life. It was affecting my health, it was affecting my relationship, my friendships, everything. So finally that day in 2015, things just sort of came to a head with me and my boyfriend, who's now my fiance, and just said, look, if you're going to continue living your life this way, I'm not going to stop you, but I'm also not going to be a part of it for very much longer. And that was just sort of like the last straw that I needed to say, what is more important to me, this relationship with the man that now is going to be my husband, or this substance, which has been a struggle of mine for a long time. So that was the last time.
You shared something so valuable. I've been trying to reframe with people that I work with in recovery, that's boundaries. And I'm like, no,
Yeah.
let's look at it. Let's reframe that to accessibility. And your fiance, I saw some recent photos of you guys vacationing, which is awesome. He decided, I'm going to change my accessibility.
Yes.
And I try to tell people, let's talk about accessibility, boundaries. We've kind of bastardized, but it's like, I love you, but I'm not going to be accessible in the way that you want me to be if you're going to continue to do what you're going to do.
Yes, exactly. And that was kind of it. It was like, and again, this has been, an ongoing struggle for many years. It's not like I was like, well, I don't have a problem at all. I was already fully aware. I had already, stopped drinking and started again, and stopped using drugs and started again, like many things over the years. So that was the last time, that was the time that I was able to finally make it stick, when I was forced with, to face the possibility of living life without the person that I wanted to live it with.
Yeah. Did you face, I was sharing with you before we started, really being able to hone in, coming from a lineage of substance abuse and addiction and losing family members to this, if you want to call it a disease or whatever your framing is for it. Did it kind of start with childhood stuff? I mean, I've noticed because I worked in rock radio for 20 years. I did my fair share of partying backstage. I kind of got an idea of the lifestyle. My sponsor works for a very huge band. It's like, I've seen it. I've seen what it is. And especially us artsy people, we tend to turn to our art form to get away from some of that pain. I mean, was this a thing that kind of started with childhood, peer pressure? Really, where for you do you kind of, in doing the work, see where it kind of kicked off for you?
Well, my parents, my dad was a touring musician. My mom, of course, was in the lifestyle with him, being the wife of a rock star. But I wouldn't say that my addiction started with them. I think, for me, it was deeply personal. And a lot of it had to do with just being an awkward kid. A lot of musicians, we have a hard time making friends. We're not the most social. Like, I certainly am not the most social and outgoing person. I started playing music and touring at a very young age. So for me, alcohol was the great equalizer. I could be the 15-year-old kid in the room, with a bunch of adults, playing on the same stage, and they would treat me like a kid. But if you start drinking together, everything kind of, you kind of become friends and become equals. If you can have a beer with somebody, you can get to know them and be friends with them on that level. So it started out as something social and then really snowballed from there, as it does with so many people.
Well, and you said something really valuable there too that I think people don't think about, and it definitely felt that way for me. I was a bit of a late bloomer. I mean, I didn't really start drinking until legally I could. But it was that equalizer. It was, I was a very awkward kid, and you're so nice and sweet, but I've seen you perform live multiple times, and you play with veracity and you have this energy, and it's like such a different part of your personality. What is it, Japanese culture? They say we have 4 faces, and it's like one of your other faces that comes out. And people say that to me, like, I host MMA events and pro wrestling and do all this stuff, and yet I'm really quite shy and introverted. And it's like, tell me if this resonates with you. I found that I wanted the performer personality to be able to match with people because they seem to like that side. So I wanted to give them that all the time.
100%. Yeah, that is definitely what it is. I feel like playing on stage is definitely like an alter ego for me. When I get on stage, I'm powerful and confident. And when I got off stage, I wanted to feel the same way. And using these different substances made me feel like that, made me feel funny and confident and friendly and outgoing, where, now I'm more confident in a different way, but I'm also a lot less outgoing. I'm the first one to bed at night. I'm not the one staying up and hanging out and chit-chatting until the late hours or going out to, bars or other concerts after our show is done. And that's, that's the sort of social trade-off of sobriety for me.
Yeah, but I mean, you sound that you love it that way. And I know I do. Like, if people invite me out and say it's at one of my best friends, they own a lounge, very upscale, and I'll go and I'll watch my friend who performs jazz there and this kind of stuff. But everyone knows I have a heart out. Like, they know there's going to come a point where it's like, love you guys, but peace out. I'm out of here.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. For me, I think I generally just don't go, but there's sort of like an unspoken thing with, me and my friends, me and my band members, whether I'm on tour with Alice or I'm on the road now with my solo band, where they always invite me because they know I like to be invited, but they also know that it's unlikely that I'll go. So it's like, I'm always in the group text, like, hey guys, we're going to go to the steakhouse tonight. If anybody wants to go, we're going to go get a bottle of wine and hang out. And they know that I'm going to respond and say, thank you so much for the invite. I think I'm going to stay in and have a great time. And nobody gets their feelings hurt. And, it's all very loving.
Yeah. Is there ever a point where maybe it's like, look, I'll like a reply, like, look, I'll do the steak, but once the second bottle of wine hits the table, I'm out, bitches. So,
I go from time to time, and there's, the great thing about all the bands I work with and the people that I tour with, it's like, there's never any pressure, everyone, I think that they would all stop drinking before they would let me have a drink, which is nice. There's never been any like, well, can't you just have one or can't you do this? It's like it's deeply, deeply supported, even though it's not like a recovery based tour.
Don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you get a lot out of this podcast, share with a friend. And don't forget the archive of interviews we have. Bam Margera, Brandon Novak, Kat Von D, Charlie Sheen, Edward Furlong, Kelly Osbourne. The list goes on and on of amazing guests that have been on the podcast, sharing how they have found purposeful lives. Speaking of purpose, how about a lifestyle brand with purpose? 5150 LTM. That's right. Not only is it a lifestyle brand that can fit whatever it is you're trying to achieve in life, but they give back to the community. And you, the listener of Knockin Doorz Down, get 20% off every time you shop at 5150 LTM. All you have to do is use the code KDD20 at checkout and get 20% off. And how does 5150 give back to the community? Portions of the sales benefit the Carlos Vieira Foundation. Their 3 amazing programs: the Race to End the Stigma, the Race for Autism, and the Race to be Drug-Free. More on the Carlos Vieira Foundation, go to carlosvierafoundation.org. I've had people ask me like, hey, why is this time for you and your stint to sobriety so different? And I go, because I embrace 2 factual things that you can track that work for sobriety. And that's a great sense of community and having those people around, like, that wouldn't ever let you drink. And the second one being a belief in a higher power that I let work through me. Those are the 2 greatest things that are going to help you have long-term sobriety and keep working it. I mean, shoot, you work with Alice Cooper. The guy's shared it so much, about what it is. I mean, one of my heroes, I got a brief little talk with him years ago when I worked in radio. And that's, I mean, you have to have that.
Absolutely. If you talk to Alice about it, it's the only thing, in my early sobriety, I went, I was asking anybody that I could get 5 minutes with. I was like, what did you do? How did you do it? And, Alex's answer was the shortest and simplest. And he said, God just took my desire to drink away. And, really lucky in that respect, because that didn't happen for me. There's different, sobriety looks different for everybody. Everybody's journey is different, but it's wonderful when you get somebody like Coop who really embraces that part of it so fully that he was able to give that desire to God. It's a beautiful thing. I'd like to do it too.
Yeah. Is that still an area that you work on, your sense of faith and spirituality?
No, my faith is very strong.
Okay.
Always has been, even before sobriety. That's something that I'm very, very comfortable and very confident in. But I just think it just works so differently for different people,
Yes.
And there's something, and again, we say recovery looks different for everybody. And I don't personally participate in the program, but there's something that a piece of advice that I got once that really works well for me, where, and you're supposed to admit that you're powerless against alcohol. And can I curse on your show? I don't know if we're a family show.
Go for it. Just let it go. Be you, please.
And the advice was like, Nita, you're not powerless. You're fucking powerful. You have the power to take over, your own life and create your own destiny. And, that's something that was important for me to think about, is like, I felt powerless when I was drinking all the time and I felt like I couldn't stop. And now in active sobriety and active recovery, I feel powerful over my choices.
Yeah. Well, yeah, it's step 1 is what you talk like for us 12-step people. I mean, that's step 1, just admitting that you're powerless. Mm-hmm. But thank you for sharing. And you're right. Like, it's so hard. I work with some young people, Nita, and it's so hard to get them to understand, like, in a day and age where everything's, I don't even want to drive to Taco Bell. Oh, I'll just pay $20 more for it to get it delivered, and it's like, look, when you start to do the work, whatever it looks like, I'm not one of these people that I'm like, it has to be a 12-step or you have to go to treatment. I didn't go to treatment. Matter of fact, it took me a while to hit some 12-step meetings, and I do all different kinds now, smart recovery, whatever it is. Like, I want to learn as much as possible about this so that I understand and I can help people. But I think people get a little too stuck sometimes, and this is the way, like we're not the fucking
absolutely.
Mandalorian.
Yeah, exactly. It has to be okay for it to look different to everybody, Something that works for one person might not work well for another person and vice versa. It's the important thing is the recovery. Everything else is extra. We'll put it out. There you go, Bentley.
Well, and it's interesting you were holding your dog Bentley, had your dog Motley in the background, which was funny. We were talking because I had seen you on that tour with Motley, front row twice, I think. You guys killed it. Oh my God.
Thank you so much.
So awesome. And where was I going with that? Now I forgot because I'm thinking about the concert and like, oh yeah,
I got sober on that tour.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. I got sober in the middle of that tour, in the middle of a 2-year tour.
How did that work with, you got, Nikki, who's loud and vocal, and I've talked to him, did a radio interview with you, still trying to get him here on the podcast. It's just tough to get through to. How did people like that and like Alice really kind of help you? Did you just kind of watch them from afar and see how they conducted themselves? And because oftentimes people that have really worked their sobriety give off a totally different energy that you kind of go, they've got something I want. And I don't mean that like nefarious, let me steal some shit from you, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. For me, it was the opposite of afar. I have always been the type of person, excuse me, to go to people that know more than me, for help and advice. So I feel very, very grateful to have been on that tour with Alice and Nikki. I asked Nikki, within the first couple weeks, if he had any advice, and, he gave me some books to read and, some advice and some sort of like mindset stuff. And, then I spoke to Coop, who, gave the best and worst advice because, there's nothing about Alice's journey that you can take with you and use, either the Lord takes your desire to drink away or he doesn't, and so I was like, man, I wish that would help for me. I prayed on it. Didn't happen. I asked Zakk Wylde. I asked, anybody that I could come across that I could talk to for more than 5 minutes, like, hey, any tips for a newbie? And I got some great advice because of it.
Yeah. Do you recollect, gosh, you mentioned all these people I'd love to talk to. Zakk Wylde, another one of my guitar singing heroes there. Recollect maybe some of the things that he shared? Because we're talking, when we talk Cooper, when we talk Nikki Sixx, when we talk Zakk Wylde, we're talking people that they kept going a little bit longer, they wouldn't be here. Yes.
Zakk's big piece of advice to me was don't be a pussy. He was the one that said, you are powerful. You're a strong, badass woman. And this has no power over you unless you let it. And his literal words were like, quit being a pussy. It's like, I've never had someone tell me stop being a pussy in such a loving way, such a loving and encouraging way, and it was a great pep talk, good locker room pep talk. Is gosh, a good 7 years ago now, so I don't remember verbatim, but it's hard to forget when Zakk Wylde says, quit being a pussy.
I can only imagine. But it's funny, what this guy I was working with, and as I was telling you, I did some work in sex and love addictions. I struggled with pornography, and he said something very much along the same lines. He used the word, are you a cuckold? And I'm like, what are you talking about? He's like, you are giving up your manpower to some thing on the internet that something you're not even, that you're not even involved with. Like, like sack up, dude. Like, is that who you are as a man? And it was like, oh shit. First time the light went off about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a little bit of that tough love where it's like, we're conditioned at times as addicts to feel weak, be like, I'm powerless. I've got this disease. I've got this terrible thing and everybody can have fun except me, and you turn into Eeyore, everything is doom and gloom all the time. And sometimes you just need someone to say like, hey, like, as you said, like, sack up, you can live a wonderful, rich, fulfilling, fun, incredible life, more so than if it, is lived in the haze of a substance, regardless of what that substance is. You just have to like get out there and do it,
I think, and for me, and when anyone that asks me to counsel them, the breaking of the victim mentality, what you're mentioning right there, is imperative. Like we have to get
Yeah.
out the Eeyore phase. I've never heard anyone put it quite so simple. I mean, it was just
Oh,
it was
poor me.
the thanks for noticing me, and
Yes, exactly.
oh
I
god,
can't have any fun. I'm gonna go to the steakhouse and I'm gonna loudly say just water for me. You know, like,
right?
you can go to the steakhouse with the guys and you can have, they can order their glass of wine. And I have had some of the best mocktails of my life at high-end steakhouses with the Alice Cooper band,
Right.
and Alice brings his Neo flavored water drops everywhere. So, he'll get a water and put his water drops in. And I will say, like, can you just have the bartender make me something fancy? And they'll bring me a martini glass with some dry ice in it and like, some sparkling water and pineapple juice and blue food coloring or something. And you can have a lot of fun with it if you just allow yourself to do it.
Well, and thank you for sharing that, because I think it's important to. I think some do, especially new in recovery. We look at the doom and gloom side, but I've reframed it so much like this is the most rad, awesome exploration I've done. Like, I tell people, look, I'm in my Terry Funk phase of professional wrestler. I'm middle aged and crazy.
Love it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Funk
it's like
man.
I'm not going to stop being me, but we get to explore life in a totally new and free way, and I think people really miss that.
Absolutely. And you're so much more present for it. I used to drift through life like it was a video game, and like
Mm,
see how far I could get before, my video game life dies out. How much could I drink before or after the show without, being incapacitated, making mistakes on stage or whatever it was. And now I'm so clear and present for every single show. It's so much more respectful to my audience to be there and deliver them the show that they paid for rather than me stumbling around and hoping I hit the right notes. I can really make that eye contact with people that are there. I can stay on point and, play as many of the right notes as possible. And I'm never going to hit them all, but, a lot more so. And then I wake up the next day and I remember all of it. We can talk about who we saw in the crowd and say, hey, did you see, the woman with the little girl on her shoulders with the Nita Strauss shirt, and I was like, yeah, I totally saw her. Where like, a couple years ago, I might not even have remembered that I saw that little girl in the crowd.
Knockin Doorz Down by Carlos Vieira, now available wherever you get audiobooks.
I wasn't done partying, and I didn't want the binge to end. I think I knew that when I finally got home, I'd have to face what I had done, and I wasn't ready to do that. Being responsible for my actions wasn't something I was looking forward to. I had abandoned my wife and baby, my family, and my business. I wanted to avoid the shame of returning to what I had left behind. Even though I was not yet going home, I wasn't sure I had enough resources to continue the binge.
Click the link in the podcast description to find out more. I don't know if it's something you're open to talk about. I texted my sponsor and he was curious about this. Because you had a phase, you went and played with Demi Lovato, and then she kind of came out. Like, how do you see that when people that you work with have now come out as well and been vocal about it? Like, hey, I struggled, or I know she talked, oh, I'm Cali sober, and then is like, no, I'm totally sober. Like, what for you is kind of that perspective when you've been out there and spent time with people and worked with them?
I would say, excuse me, the Demi tour was the most healthy environment I've ever been in recovery on the road, because it is such a health and recovery focused environment. This is the only tour I've ever been on where there's no alcohol backstage, where, everyone, there's a lot of sober people on the tour. And Demi in particular herself was such an amazing friend and resource to me. Even, I've been sober for a long time, but she has, so much insight and has been, working in and out of recovery for so long, that she had insight and perspective that I had never even heard of. She had, like I said, I ask everybody, like, what do you do? How do you handle this? And she had some of the most insightful advice and perspective that I have ever heard from anybody, because she's been through such similar things that I have, of being on the road and having these temptations, and, how you can handle it in a proactive and smart way. So being on tour with her was a huge, huge blessing for me. I'm so grateful that it was so good mentally and spiritually, as well as so much fun as a career move.
Yeah. No, it was pretty cool. I wasn't in shock per se, but I'm like, that's a kind of a bitchin' move. Like that's cool to stretch your legs out and show another side, because I think I want to talk a little more about the career. I think sometimes people with artists, they get pigeonholed, it's like,
Yes.
for instance, okay, let's take Motley. People think these are the only songs that Nikki Sixx or the collective have ever written, and it's not the case. And for you, it was cool to kind of show you another side of your playing and your ability.
Totally. It was a fun exercise for me, and changing gears, playing a different style of music. Demi is such a talented performer and vocalist. It's fun to try to keep up with someone as good as her on stage. She is such a phenomenal talent in so many ways, and she makes all of us better for being on stage with her.
What's the challenges with with like, Cooper's big stage production, your solo career? It's going to have a bit of a technical aspect, and a Demi Lovato, obviously a bigger, different kind of state. What are some of those challenges that you face? I know some, my buddy's like, oh yeah, all of our songs, because of pyro, they're set to a click track. So we've got that in our ear. And so there's some of those different challenges. There's not any room for improv or whatever that might come about.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, like I'm sort of like always working on a few different things at once, like this year I've played with Demi, I've played with Alice, I'm on a solo tour right now. I work with the Los Angeles Rams NFL team. Like there's always a lot happening. So I'm routinely going from like a club show to an NFL game to, a festival to like back and forth. And the biggest thing is just to stay grounded through it, no matter who you're playing with, no matter if there's, 100 people there or 70,000 people there, just giving the same show, delivering, what your audience came there to see, giving you your all. I'm going to play in Chicago tonight to, a theater crowd of, I don't know, it's going to be 1,500 people or so. And I'm going to give them the 70,000 person show every single time. And
Yeah.
as long as you give that stadium show, regardless of what the gig is, that's my biggest piece of advice.
How do you keep ego in check? Like not buy into any of the bullshit, either overinflating or underinflating the ego?
Biggest thing for me, I would say, is just either not reading what people are putting online or just not putting too much stock into it. You're going to have people online that think, you're the greatest thing that ever lived. And you're going to have people online that say that you are nothing and you deserve nothing and you should get nothing, and you really just can't buy into either one of them too much. Just, keep your head down, stay in your lane, work hard, and be proud of what you're doing, and the rest will come.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people miss that with life in general. It's like, at the end of the day, we have to do what we have to do because we love to do it.
Yes. It's music, it's work, but it's also music. We do it because we love it.
Yeah. Well, you brought something up there. I know you're a big, grew up in LA, a big LA fan. Now I'm a bigger Lakers fan than a football fan.
Nice.
But what is it like? Did you ever picture, if you go back to thinking about little Nita, that you would have a Super Bowl ring? Because people don't know you got a Super Bowl ring too when the Rams won.
I did. Yeah, that was definitely one of those bucket list things that like was never actually on the bucket list. As a young musician, you dream of winning a Grammy. It never would have occurred to me to dream of a Super Bowl ring. Even like now, if I mention it, people go, why? Like, why do you have that? Like, what did you do to deserve that? And, the answer is I flew in, I took a red eye every 2 weeks of the season, to fly in. I'd wake up at 4 a.m., fly into LAX from wherever I was in the country, play the game, go back to the airport, take a red eye flight, fly at midnight back to whatever the next city was and play in the next city on Monday. It was so cool to be a part of that championship season with the Rams and, be a small part along with DJ Malski, who was amazing to work with, just hyping the team up, hyping the crowd up. And, the atmosphere is a part of it. The atmosphere in the stadium is a big part of it. So it was cool the coolest thing was to be a part of it. And the second coolest thing is getting the hardware.
I want to ask about the dogs. I've seemed to have had
Oh
guests with
yes.
dogs a lot lately, but I want to ask because my buddy who's been an amazing mentor, Sonny Mayo, who used to be in Snot, Seven Dust, all that,
Yes.
you know. Um, I was really asking him like how he found his higher power, and as when one of his dogs was sick and was going to die, and so he started spelling dog DO capital G. That's where he
Oh,
found his.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's. I'll send you the. I'll direct message you the link for this clip
Please
because
do.
it's really beautiful and it brought me tears. We're sitting in this hotel room for this podcast. Man, that's so beautiful. Uh,
Oh, wow.
um, what is it for you? Like having the dogs out on the road for you? Is that just something that really brings you a lot of comfort? And the reason I ask, I had this gentleman, Jason House, on veteran PTSD, suffered some really tough stuff overseas, and he has a program in Ohio now or Missouri.
Mhm.
God, I'm blanking right now, but it's canines, and he gets canines free trained for vets, you know, trained
Oh, wow.
service dogs. So, what for you is kind of that the dogs on the road with you?
Well, the pups are great because it's so hard to be stressed out or be mad when they're around. I mean, look at this face. Can you have a bad day when
No.
when she's here?
Uh,
Um, I tour, like I said, 10 months out of the year, and both my dogs are older. Bentley, who I have here in my lap, is 14, and the one over there, Motley, who I call the baby, is 10. So it's so important for me to spend as much time as I possibly can with them, because they're not going to be with me forever and ever. And at least I can't take them on every tour, but I take them on every solo tour because like this is my time to spend time with them,
yeah.
and they are just the best company. Anytime we're like up front in the front lounge of the bus discussing, the next day's show, or stressful stuff about merch or money or whatever it is. Somebody's got a dog in their lap doing this, and it just kind of like brings the energy level down a little bit. Nobody's gonna yell and scare them.
Oh yeah.
We'll yell at each other, but not when the dogs are around.
Was she a teacup Pomeranian?
She's a Pomchi,
Okay.
Pomeranian Chihuahua mix, and then Motley over there who's sleeping is a little like Chihuahua Terrier mix.
Oh, I love it. And they're good alert dogs too, aren't they? They protect their owner, man. They'll pipe up.
Well, these two are pretty lazy.
Are they?
And the problem with mine is they like everybody, so like it would be they don't startle very easily. They
Oh.
like attention from everybody. So if somebody broke into the bus, I don't think they'd be much help. I'd put my cat up against a burglar over them
Oh, there you go. Yeah, right. Uh-huh.
because she's a dick.
Cats are our cat. Oh my
Yeah.
God. So my girlfriend, she got a weighted blanket. You know, she wanted to try it, and it's been helping her sleep
Mhm.
so much better. And our cat, no matter what, every night coming up and doing, the kneading thing that they do and clawing at it.
Mhm.
And woke up
Yeah.
this morning, the cat's just wrapped around her fucking leg. It's like, you little shit.
Come
Uh,
on. Yep.
we're gonna jump to some fun random questions to finish up, and I'm gonna leave you with the final thought. But I have to ask because I'm a huge professional wrestling fan. I've worked in the business as a ring announcer and TV commentator, playing for the WWE. Like, I gotta say, when you did the entrance WrestleMania, that was some of the coolest shit I had seen at a WrestleMania for an entrance in a long time. How did that come about?
So my fiance Josh is also my manager, and we love WWE. We're huge professional wrestling fans. I had played for some indie shows in the past already, and that was really Josh's vision. He was like, I just, he imagined this happening. He has these ideas, and we didn't have the right connect. We didn't know who to talk to. It wasn't like we called up a pal and we're like, hey, can she come and do this gig? And they said, yeah, have her do WrestleMania. It was a lot of reaching out, trying different contacts. Nick Foley was a huge part of it, an instrumental part in getting us to the right person. Lillian Garcia was another one, very important to like getting us to the right people to meet at WWE. And very, very grateful to Neil Lowy and the whole team there for allowing me to be a part of such a historic and special moment with Shinsuke.
Yeah, yeah, and he's such an awesome performer, such an awesome guy. And
Yeah,
yeah, you had that great
totally amazing.
conversation with Lillian Garcia on her show, and I loved that. She's a phenomenal lady.
Yeah,
And Mick Foley,
she's
just one of the
amazing.
hero legends for sure. That's another one of those bucket list people to talk to. He's such a phenomenal person. But
Yeah, Mick is one of a kind, truly one of a kind. And I don't mean like RVD one of a kind, who was actually the first pro wrestler I played down to the ring. I played walk for RVD at an
that's
indie show. That
right.
was the first time I played in an indie wrestling ring.
Yeah. No, Mick, he's such a unique individual. Yeah, I would
Yeah.
love to have a beautiful conversation with that guy someday. Got a lot of those bucket list people still, but I know we're a little closer for time. You got a show day, you got to prep, so I really appreciate you doing this. But this is where I jump into some fun, random questions. This is where we have shits and giggles, as they would say in Great Britain. Um, let's start off. Three most influential guitar players for you that you personally maybe took some technique or whatever it was, or
I'd say Steve Vai, Marty Friedman, Jennifer Batten.
I don't know Jennifer Batten. Tell me more about her.
Jennifer Batten was Michael Jackson's guitar player.
Oh, okay. Yes, now I know. Go ahead.
Total shred genius, played with Jeff Beck, amazing solo artist, and really, to me, the pioneer of female shred.
She did the Bad Tour.
Yes,
Okay, now I know
as the
exactly who
great
you're
Jennifer
talking.
Batten.
Yeah,
Mhm.
my mom wouldn't take me when she went. Yeah.
Aw.
Oh, it's okay. Marty Friedman, of course, Megadeth. Was it the work with Megadeth? Was it the solo work with combination of the both, or experiences you personally had with him?
I would say all of the above.
Hmm.
The first heavy metal song I ever heard was a Megadeth song with Marty Friedman playing guitar. So it was like it's a core memory, for me hearing Marty Friedman play for the first time. Um, then of course getting into instrumental solo guitar music, Marty Friedman, there's not many people that have done it as cool as Marty Friedman did, with so many different influences, so many different styles, so much versatility. And then I did have the honor to collaborate with him on my new record. We wrote a song together, which is the closing track on my new album, The Call of the Void. And that was a huge honor to do that.
Yeah. I'll put that link for your album too in the description for people that maybe haven't checked it out yet. It's phenomenal stuff. And I would ask you about Steve Vai, but it's kind of like Steve Vai. Look, if you're into guitar playing and you don't like, I don't have an answer for people that don't give him, his just due. So
That's the truth. She Bentley agrees.
let's see. What's the fun one? Pet peeves, stuff that irks you.
How much time do you have?
I got all the time you want. I'm on your clock here with this one. I could talk to you all day, but
Oh my gosh. Let's see. Oh, here's a fun little one. People that use the front of the stage as a coffee table during the show. Sometimes,
ah,
you get people, when they're on the barricade, that they'll put their drinks or their jacket or something on the stage. And like sometimes I look at them and I'm like, I'll come to your work and put my jacket up on your desk, There you
uh,
go. There's a fun little pet peeve.
that's a very unique to you pet peeve and
Yes.
other performers. So that's a good one. Yeah, I was wondering if you were going to say lately. I had a guy ask me the other day. He goes to you usually start your podcast with gratitude. So I'm going to ask you about gratitude. And I said, I'm grateful for people that actually know proper lane changing procedure, including the signal and accelerate into gap, because that's just missing from society. I don't know where that shit went.
Amen.
If let's say you have your book out there or something, your life story, they make either a movie or TV show about you, who would you want to play you?
Oh, wow. I never even thought about that.
And I'm a good actor, but I couldn't pull it off. I'm just saying.
No, maybe not. I'm like, who's pretty? I don't know. I had never thought about that. I don't know that they would ever need to make a movie out of me. I'm just trying to, it's a boring answer. I'm just trying to think who I've gotten told I look like. Maybe like an Uma Thurman, or like, I get Hillary Duff a lot. So maybe
Sure. All right. I could say, yeah, why not? Let's get Duff back out
why
there doing
not?
it, huh?
Yeah. I don't know who's really pretty. Give me like a Scarlett Johansson, or like
Scarlett
I don't
Johansson
know.
can do it.
Yeah. Anybody could do it. I'm pretty simple.
Yeah, no, I could see Scarlett Johansson. I mean, because she's got the chops. You know, she would invest the work. She would at least. Okay, tell me if this doesn't bother you. I get annoyed when I watch music films, and it's so overly blatant that the actors are definitely not playing like the song, period, or even really like. I've seen it before. Like, that's not even a chord, what you're doing. I don't care what your tuning is. That's not even a chord, and it drives me nuts.
Oh yes, actually, we just did a music video for my newest single out, which is called Victorious, and the director hired an actress to play the part of little Nita. And when they cast her, they asked her if she could play guitar, and she said yes. And then they sent me a clip. They said, "Hey, we just shot the first scene. What do you think?" And it was so obvious to me that this girl had never picked up a guitar in her life. That like I have never sent someone home so fast. I wasn't even in the room, and I sent her home. Like I said, this is not going to work, and we wound up having to recast that day and get. I handpicked a very very talented young player, Charlotte Milstein, who doesn't look as much like me as the first girl, but she's such a talented guitar player that like we needed her for it to be realistic. We needed the vibe of like a young, hungry guitar player, and she was perfect.
Yeah. Well, and it goes to show, like, I think it was Bryan Cranston's book. He talked about that. If you tell them, yes, you can, you better go effing learn it before you get on set.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. Same thing in music. Yep.
Yeah. That's why I keep my ass off the stage. I'm completely tone deaf. So I've tried real hard. I've got the mechanics down. It's the rest of it that sucks.
We need good air guitar players too.
Yeah, I mean, I look better with an actual one. I mean, I can bang some stuff out, but nothing where it's like, I'm gonna go see that guy play. I pull off a pretty decent, a couple of Cinderella songs. I got down pretty good.
There you go. What more do you need?
What is something people would be surprised to learn about you? Maybe something that you don't share often, a hobby, an interest, anything that's just a little maybe not discussed.
I'm trying to think of something that I've never talked about. I don't know if I've ever mentioned, it's just like the first thing on my mind because I watched the new one this morning, but I love the show Frasier. I'm obsessed with they have a revival, like, reboot of it that just came out, which I think is so good. And I just watched the new one. So I can probably quote just about any line from any episode of that show.
I'll be darned. Yeah, I love the ones when they would bring back Lilith. Those were always the best to me.
So great, so funny. Bebe North is just such an amazing actress, and the way that they play off each other is so good.
Yeah. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I was obsessed with that show when I was young. I haven't started the new one. I have it bookmarked.
Oh, you got to see it. Oh, it's so good. I literally just watched the new one right before our interview, which is why I was thinking about it.
Oh, really? Yeah, I've been in a sci-fi phase lately because there's so much good like Star Wars and Star Trek stuff, and like my early recovery, my first sponsor was like, "What did you love to do as a kid?" We whittled it down to Legos, and so I build Star Wars Legos. It's kind of my little time to myself. So,
how fun!
Well, thank you for this. It's been a real pleasure and an honor. Thank you for carving out the time and for recovering out loud. I know it probably impacts more people than maybe you are able to know that you share that. And I commend you. I thank you. I'm proud of you. And hopefully I get to see you perform live in person. We get to have a little face-to-face at some point. But this is where I like to leave the guests with the final thought. Anything you want to share for maybe someone that's struggling, their loved ones, whatever it is, it's up to you.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Thank you for using your platform to share these powerful stories and for including me in that. To anybody that's watching and struggling, just know that you're not alone. There are so many great resources. If you feel like your recovery doesn't look like someone else's, try something else. There's so many different resources and different avenues. The most important thing is your sobriety. I'm on the road now for another month, so I look forward to seeing a lot of you out here at the shows. I'm out supporting Mammoth, WVH, Wolfgang Van Halen's band. So hopefully you see a lot of you guys out there.
On that note, keep knocking doors down. This is the Knockin Doorz Down podcast, featuring celebrities, experts, and everyday people who have overcome adversities, including addiction, mental health, and trauma, to live purposeful lives. And that's what Knockin Doorz Down is all about.